Hey everybody, welcome. This is Politico. Welcome to the stream, and we are just a moment away from listening to President Biden addressing Congress for the first time in his presidency. This will be his first major speech, his first major speech since he was elected president. So we will see what unfolds in just a minute. And right now we are live at the White House YouTube channel, and we are about to take a look and see if we can dissect anything, see if we can interpret anything of what he says. Hopefully he will speak in complete sentences today. But for now, we have to wait. We have to wait for the stream to start. But for those of you who are just arriving, welcome. For those of you who will be arriving later, welcome as well. So, for now we're just waiting for the speech to start, but I personally anticipate a speech that is shorter than any of former President Trump's speeches to Congress. With this speech in particular, there will only be 200 invited guests into the chamber due to COVID-19 restrictions. So we will see how things unfold there. We will see who shows up. Apparently there was a lottery. Apparently what happened was you got a lottery ticket, basically, and if you were picked, you could go to this speech. So we will have to see who made the cut. And it'll be interesting to see if anyone prominent did not make the cut. Although, like I said, it was a lottery, so obviously people did not pick as to whether to go, but we will see who is there. At this event, we will also only see one Supreme Court justice out of 9 Supreme Court justices. The Supreme Court is reliably conservative, as it has been for the past year, but in terms of this speech, it will just be one Supreme Court justice. I don't remember which one. We will see who it is. Here it is. We got an interpreter. We've got people in Congress. You can see people in the House chamber. Right now you can see Vice President Kamala Harris in a white suit, I believe, as well as Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. We can see them both. It seems that everyone is wearing a mask. We can see Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. We can see Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Bernie Sanders. I've got this on the other monitor, so that's where I am looking. I'm looking at the other monitor. We hear the gavel being pressed.
Madam Speaker, the President of the United States.
The President's about to appear. There he is with First Lady Jill Biden. And I believe the person in blue was Kirsten Gillibrand, maybe? I'm not quite sure. I'll make sure I turn captions on, by the way. Can I turn No, I guess you're not getting captions. Sorry, everybody. Whoops, I guess you're not getting captions, but... There's that fist bump to Bernie Sanders. Probably a symbolic gesture. I see Amy Klobuchar, the staple thrower. Here's Joe Biden giving his speech to the Vice President and to the House Speaker. Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris, respectively.
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and distinct honor to present to you the President of the United States.
So it looks like all the big names have shown up. I have not seen Senator Elizabeth Warren yet. I don't really see her.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And here it is, Joe Biden speaking right now. We will interrupt at various intervals, but mostly it'll be live. This is Politico. Welcome to the press room, and here you are listening to Joe Biden speaking to the
down the hall.
House chamber.
Thank you all, Madam Speaker.
Speech to Congress.
Madam Vice President. No president has ever said those words from this podium. No president has ever said those words, and it's about time. First Lady, I'm her husband. Second gentleman, Chief Justice, members of the United States Congress and the Cabinet, distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. While the setting tonight is familiar, this gathering is just a little bit different. A reminder of the extraordinary times we're in. Throughout our history, to speak to Congress, to the nation, and to the world.
Sorry.
To declare war, to celebrate peace, to announce new plans and possibilities. Tonight, I come to talk about crisis and opportunity, about rebuilding the nation, revitalizing our democracy, and winning the future for America. I stand here tonight, one day shy of the 100th day of my administration. 100 days since I took the oath of office and lifted my hand off our family Bible and inherited a nation, we all did, that was in crisis. The worst pandemic in a century, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. Now, after just 100 days, I can report to the nation, America is on the move again.
I've heard this before. America's back on track. There's Mitch McConnell with his slow clap. I don't know if you noticed that there.
Turning peril into possibility, crisis to opportunity, setbacks into strength. We all know life can knock us down, but in America, we never, ever, ever stay down. Americans always get up. Today, that's what we're doing. America's rising anew, choosing hope over fear, truth over lies, and light over darkness. After 100 days of rescue and renewal, America is ready for a takeoff, in my view. We're working again, dreaming again, discovering again, and leading the world again. We have shown each other and the world that there's no quit in America, none. 100 days ago, America's house was on fire. We had to act. And thanks to the extraordinary leadership
He's mentioning the
Speaker Pelosi,
January 6th insurrection by the Trump supporters.
and the overwhelming support of the American people, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, we did act. Together, we passed the American Rescue Plan, one of the most consequential rescue packages in American history. We're already seeing the results. We're already seeing the results. After I promised we'd get 100 million COVID-19 vaccine shots into people's arms in 100 days, we will have provided over 220 million COVID shots in those 100 days. Thanks to all the help of all of you. We're marshaling, with your help, everyone's help, we're marshaling every federal resource. We've gotten vaccines to nearly 40,000 pharmacies and over 700 community health centers where the poorest of the poor can be reached. We're setting up community vaccination sites, developing mobile units to get to hard-to-reach communities. Today, 90% of Americans now live within 5 miles of a vaccination site. Everyone over the age of 16, everyone is now eligible to get vaccinated right now, right away. Go get vaccinated, America. Go and get the vaccination. They're available. You're eligible now. When I was sworn in on January 20th, less than 1% of the seniors in America were fully vaccinated against COVID-19. 100 days later, 70% of seniors in America over 65 are protected, fully protected. Senior deaths from COVID-19 are down 80% since January. down 80% because of all of you. And more than half of all the adults in America have gotten at least one shot. A mass vaccination center in Glendale, Arizona, I asked the nurse, I said, "What's it like?" She looked at me and she said, "It's like every shot is giving a dose of hope," was her phrase, a dose of hope. A dose of hope for an educator in Florida who has a child suffering from an autoimmune disease. Wrote to me, said she's worried, and she was worried about bringing the virus home. She said she then got vaccinated at a large site in her car. She said she sat in her car when she got vaccinated and just cried. Cried out of joy and cried out of relief. Parents, seeing the smiles on their kids' faces for those who are able to go back to school because the teachers and school bus drivers and cafeteria workers have been vaccinated. Grandparents, hugging their children and grandchildren instead of pressing hands against a window to say goodbye. It means everything. Those things mean everything. You know, there's still, you all know it, you know it better than any group of Americans, there's still more work to do to beat this virus. We can't let our guard down. But tonight, I can say, because of you, the American people, our progress these past 100 days against one of the worst pandemics in history
Paul,
has been one of the
woke
greatest
has
logistical
protests.
achievements. Logistical achievements.
You want to know why I was
this country
gone? I
has
was
seen.
gone because there were protests outside.
What else have we done in those first 100 days? We kept our
That's
commitment,
absolutely what it was.
Democrats and Republicans, of sending $1,400 rescue checks to 85% of American households. We've already sent more than 160 million checks out the door. It's making a difference. You all know it when you go home. For many people, it's making all the difference in the world. A single mom in Texas who wrote me, she said she couldn't work, but she said the relief check put food on the table and saved her and her son from eviction from their apartment. A grandmother in Virginia who told me she immediately took her granddaughter to the eye doctor, something she said she put off for months because she didn't have the money. One of the defining images, at least from my perspective in this crisis, has been cars lined up for miles. And not people just barely able to start those cars, nice cars, lined up for miles, waiting for a box of food to be put in their trunk. I don't know about you, but I didn't ever think I'd see that in America. And all of this is through no fault of their own. No fault of their own, these people are in this position. That's why the rescue plan is delivering food and nutrition assistance to millions of Americans facing hunger.
The rescue plan just got passed through Congress, by the way.
We're also providing rental assistance. You all know this, but the American people, I want to make sure they understand. Keeping people from being evicted from their homes. Providing loans to small businesses that reopen and keep their employees on the job. During these 100 days, an additional 800,000 Americans enrolled in the Affordable Care Act when I established a special sign-up period to do that. 800,000 in that period. We're making one of the largest one-time ever investments, ever, in improving health care for veterans. Critical investments to address the opioid crisis. And maybe most importantly, thanks to the American Rescue Plan, we're on track to cut child poverty in America in half this year.
And there come the customary claps. I think that's Ted Kennedy, who's in the second row. He did not clap.
While this was all going on, the economy created.
So there are some Republicans in the audience, at least a couple. And so far no one has clapped.
more jobs in the first 100 days than any president on record. The International Monetary Fund
I noticed that Mitch McConnell has stopped clapping.
Our economy will grow at a rate of more than 6% this year. That will be the fastest pace of economic growth in this country in nearly 4 decades. America's moving forward, but we can't stop now. We're in competition with China and other countries
China.
to win the 21st century. We're at a great inflection point in history. We have to do more than just build back better. We have to build back better.
He said that twice. We have to build back better. In order to do that, we have to build back better. You know.
Throughout our history, if you think about it, public investment in infrastructure has literally transformed America. Our attitudes as well as our opportunities. The Transcontinental Railroad, the interstate highways, united 2 oceans and brought a totally new age of progress to the United States of America. Universal public schools and college aid opened wide the doors of opportunity. Scientific breakthroughs took us to the moon. Now we're on Mars. Discovering vaccines gave us the internet, and so much more.
Mars gave us the internet?
These
Whoa!
are made together as one country.
I didn't know that.
And investments that only the government was in a position to make. Time and again, they propel us into the
Mars gave us the internet. You hear that?
That's why I proposed the American Jobs Plan.
There's this
A
plan.
once-in-a-generation investment in America itself. This is the largest jobs plan since World War II. Creates jobs to upgrade our transportation infrastructure. Jobs modernizing our roads, bridges, highways. Jobs building ports and airports, rail corridors, transit lines. It's clean water. And today, up to 10 million homes in America and more than 400,000 schools and child care centers have pipes with lead in them, including drinking water. A clear and present danger to our children's health.
Michigan is one of the states that
American Jobs Plan
is still
creates jobs replacing
dealing with
100%
higher lead count in
of the
drinking
nation's
water.
lead pipes and service lines, so every American can drink clean water.
There is Maxine Waters.
And in the process, will create thousands and thousands of good-paying jobs. It creates jobs connecting every American with high-speed internet, including 35% of the rural America that still doesn't have.
Here's the deal. If I did not have high-speed internet, I would not be able to stream to you guys. So, you know, you have to be thankful that I have high-speed internet, and hopefully more people can get more.
I know will get done.
We'll get faster internet. Because oftentimes
Jobs building a modern power grid.
the internet is data capped by monopolies in different states.
Hacks, catastrophic failures with tragic results, as we saw in Texas and elsewhere during the winter storms.
He's talking about the hurricanes as well, probably.
Will lay thousands of miles of transmission lines needed to build a resilient and fully clean grid. We can do that. Look, the American Jobs Plan will help millions of people get back to their jobs and back to their careers. 2 million women have dropped out of the workforce during this pandemic. 2 million. And too often because they couldn't get the care they needed to care for their child or care for an elderly parent who needs help. 800,000 families are on the Medicare waiting list right now to get home care for their aging parent or loved one with disability. If you think it's not important, check out in your own district, Democrat or Republican. Democrat or Republican voters.
Here's the deal. Are we going to get a you lie this time? I don't think we will, but it'd be funny.
Of an elderly loved one who can't be left
If we
alone.
got a you lie, you know.
Medicaid contemplated it, but this plan is going to help those families and create jobs for our caregivers with better wages and better benefits, continuing a cycle of growth. For too long, we've failed to use the most important word when it comes to meeting the climate crisis: jobs. Jobs.
Jobs, 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 jobs. This is the whole shebang. Jobs, jobs, jobs. If there's one thing to take this away, is jobs, jobs, jobs. So this. That.
For me, when I think climate change, I think jobs.
Jobs.
American Jobs Plan will put engineers and construction workers to work building more energy-efficient buildings and homes. Electrical workers, IBEW members installing 500,000 charging stations along our highways so we can own the electric car market. Farmers planting cover crops so they can reduce the carbon dioxide in the air and get paid for doing it. Look, think about it. There is simply no reason why the blades for wind turbines can't be built in Pittsburgh instead of Beijing.
Ooh,
no reason.
That's an interesting point right there.
None. No reason.
Bernie Sanders clapping for that. Oh, there's Debbie Stabenow as well.
There's no reason why American workers can't lead the world in the production of electric vehicles and batteries. I mean, there is no reason. We have the capacity. We're the brightest, best trained people in the world. The American Jobs Plan is going to create millions of good paying jobs, jobs Americans can raise a family on. As my dad would then say, with a little breathing room. And all the investments in the American Job Plan will be guided by one principle: buy American. Buy American. And I might note parenthetically, that does not violate any trade agreement. It's been the law since the 30s. Buy American. American tax dollars are going to be used to buy American products made in America to create American jobs. That's the way it's supposed to be, and it will be in this administration.
Here we go. There's the promise right there. We'll see if this holds up.
And I made it clear to all my cabinet people, their ability to give exemptions has been strenuously limited. It will be American products. Now, I know some of you at home are wondering whether these jobs are for you. So many of you, so many of the folks I grew up with, feel left behind, forgotten, in an economy that's so rapidly changing. It's frightening. I want to speak directly to you, because you think about it. That's what people are most worried about. Can I fit in? Independent experts estimate the American Jobs Plan will add millions of jobs and trillions of dollars to economic growth in the years to come. It is a 8-year program.
5-year plan, everybody? Ooh, it's the 5-year plan? It's the 8-year plan. Oh my God.
Jobs created in the American Jobs Plan do not require a college degree. 75% don't require an associate's degree. The American Jobs Plan is a blue-collar blueprint to build America. That's what it is. And it recognizes something I've always said in this chamber and the other. Good guys and women on Wall Street, but Wall Street didn't build this country. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class. So
there we go. There's an appeal to the middle class. The dying middle class.
To pass Protect the Right to Organize Act, the PRO Act, and send it to my desk so we can support the right to unionize.
So right now a bunch of states have right to work laws.
And by the way, while you're thinking about sending things to my desk,
Joe.
Raise the minimum wage to $15.
There's
No
his
one.
broadest appeal to raise the minimum wage to $15 an
No one
hour.
working 40 hours a week. No one working 40 hours a week should live below the poverty line. We need to ensure greater equity and opportunity for women. And while we're doing this, let's get the Paycheck Fairness Act to my desk as well. Equal pay. It's been much too long. And if you wonder whether it's too long, look behind me. And finally, the American Jobs Plan will be the biggest increase in non-defense research and development on record. We'll see more technological change, and some of you know more about this than I do. We'll see more technological change in the next 10 years than we saw in the last 50. That's how rapidly artificial intelligence and so much more is changing. And we're falling behind the competition with the rest of the world. Decades ago, we used to invest 2% of our gross domestic product in America, 2% of our gross domestic product in research and development.
Come on, Joe, get your mouth on the microphone so people can hear you.
That's less than 1%. China and other countries are closing in.
2
fast.
Chinas so far. 3 Chinas, I believe.
We have to develop and dominate the products and technologies of the future. Advanced batteries, biotechnology, computer chips, clean energy. The Secretary of Defense can tell you, and those of you who work in national security issues know, the Defense Department has an agency called DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. The people who set up before I came here, and that's been a long time ago, to develop breakthroughs that enhance our national security. That's their only job. And it's a semi-separate agency. It's under the Defense Department. It's led to everything from the discovery of the internet to GPS and so much more that's enhanced our security. The National Institute of Health, the NIH, I believe, should create a similar advanced research projects agency for health. And here's what it would do. It would have a singular purpose: to develop breakthroughs to prevent, detect, and treat diseases like Alzheimer's, diabetes, and cancer. I'll still never forget when we passed the cancer proposal in the last year as vice president. Almost $9 million going to NIH. And if you excuse the point of personal privilege, I'll never forget you standing, Mitch, and saying, "Name it after my deceased son." It meant a lot.
Oh, here we go.
But so many of
He's
us
talking about Beau Biden,
have deceased sons, daughters, and relatives
I believe.
who died of cancer. I can think of no more worthy investment. I know of nothing that is more bipartisan. So let's end cancer as we know it. It's within our power. It's within our power to do it. Investments in jobs.
I think the lady in brown hair is Lauren Boebert,
have often had bipartisan
I believe.
support in the past.
I barely
Vice
saw a
President
glimpse of her.
Harris and I met regularly in the Oval Office with Democrats and Republicans and discussed the jobs plan. And I applaud a group of Republican senators who just put forward their own proposal. So let's get to work. I wanted to lay out before the Congress my plan before we got into the deep discussions. I'd like to meet with those who have ideas that are different, they think are better. I welcome those ideas. But the rest of the world is not waiting for us. I just want to be clear. From my perspective, doing nothing is not an option. Look, we can't be so busy competing with one another that we forget the competition that we have with the rest of the world to win the 21st century. Secretary Blinken can tell you I spent a lot of time with President Xi. Traveled over 17,000 miles with him. Spent, they tell me, over 24 hours in private discussions with him. When he called to congratulate him, we had a 2-hour discussion. He's deadly earnest about becoming the most significant, consequential nation in the world. He and others, autocrats, think that democracy can't compete in the 21st century.
I don't know if you caught that, but he just called Xi Jinping, the leader of China, an autocrat. I don't know if you caught that, but I did.
To win that competition for the future, in my view, we also need to make a once-in-a-generation investment in our families and our children. That's why I've introduced the American Families Plan tonight, which addresses 4 of the biggest challenges facing American families and in turn America. First is access to good education. When this nation made 12 years of public education universal in the last century, it made us the best educated, best prepared nation in the world. It's, I believe, the overwhelming reason that propelled us to where we got in the 20th century. But the world's caught up or catching up. They're not waiting. I would say parenthetically, if we were sitting down, we set a bipartisan committee together and said, okay, we're going to decide what we do in terms of government providing for free education. I wonder whether we'd think, as we did in the 20th century, that 12 years is enough in the 21st century. I doubt it. 12 years is no longer enough today to compete with the rest of the world in the 21st century. That's why my American Families Plan guarantees 4 additional years of public education for every person in America, starting as early as we can. The great universities in this country have conducted studies of the last 10 years. It shows that adding 2 years of universal high-quality preschool for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old, no matter what background they come from, puts them in the position to be able to compete all the way through 12 years.
So, I was looking to see who's in the back. I was in preschool in my youth, actually.
The research shows when a young child goes to school, not daycare, they're far more likely to graduate from high school and go to college or something after high school. When you add 2 years of free community college on top of that, you begin to change the dynamic. We can do that. And we'll increase Pell Grants and invest in historical black colleges and universities, tribal colleges, minority-serving institutions. The reason is they don't have the endowments. But their students are just as capable of learning about cybersecurity, just as capable of learning about metallurgy, all the things that are going on that provide those jobs of the future. Jill is a community college professor who teaches today as First Lady. She's long said...
It's Dr. Jill Biden, actually. She has a doctorate, actually.
She's long...
There was an article that came out last year, sort of brushing off Jill Biden's educational background.
Any country that out-educates us is going to outcompete us.
There was an article made a year ago, that kind of disparaged Jill Biden by brushing off her educational background. And I think any person who does that and brushes off someone's educational background is ridiculous. Especially if you're not a fellow doctorate. It's uncalled for, it's rude.
When I'm proposing the legislation, we guarantee that low and middle income families will pay no more than 7% of their income for high quality care for children up to the age of 5. The most hard-pressed working families won't have to spend a dime. Third, the American Families Plan will finally provide up to 12 weeks of paid leave and medical leave, family medical leave. We're one of the few industrial countries in the world. No one should have to choose between a job and a paycheck or taking care of themselves and their loved ones or parent or spouse or child. And fourth, the American Family Plan puts directly into the pockets of millions of Americans. In March, we expanded tax credit for every child in a family, up to $3,000 per child if they're under 6 years of age. Over 6 years of age.
Come on, Joe, you can do it.
And $3,600 for children over 6 years.
So right now, Joe
Two
Biden
parents,
is
two
hoping
kids,
to
that's
make
$7,200
this
in the pockets to
tax
help
credit
take
a
care of your
permanent
family.
feature in the
And
tax
that will
code.
help more than 65 million children and help cut child care poverty in half.
That's a left-wing
We can
talking
afford
point.
it. So we did that in the last piece of legislation we passed. But let's extend that child care tax credit at least through the end of 2025. The American Rescue Plan lowered health care premiums for 9 million Americans who buy their coverage under the Affordable Care Act. I know that's really popular this side of the aisle. But let's make that provision
You hear that
permanent
chuckle?
so their premiums don't go back up.
The Republicans are not a fan of the Affordable Care Act. I believe in 2018 they tried to repeal it, and it failed to pass the Senate and make it
In
onto
addition to
former
my
President
family
Trump's
plan,
desk.
I'm going to work with Congress to address this year other critical priorities for American families. The Affordable Care Act has been a lifeline for millions of Americans, protecting people with pre-existing conditions, protecting women's health, and the pandemic has demonstrated how badly it's needed. Let's lower deductibles for working families on the Affordable Care Act. And let's lower prescription drug costs. We know how to do this. The last president had that as an objective. We all know how outrageously expensive drugs are in America.
True,
In
actually,
fact, we
President
pay
Trump
the highest
at the
prescription
last
drug
year
prices
of his presidency
anywhere
was
in the
focused
world,
on
right here
lowering
in
drug
America.
costs for prescription drugs. He said
Nearly
that in a
3
couple
times.
speeches. They did.
for the same drug, nearly 3 times what other countries pay. We have to change that, and we can. Let's do what we talked about for all the years I was down here in this body, in Congress. Let's give Medicare the power to save hundreds of billions of dollars by negotiating lower drug prescription prices. And by the way, it won't just help people on Medicare. Lower prescription drug costs for everyone. And the money we save, which is billions of dollars, can go to strengthen the Affordable Care Act and expand Medicare coverage benefits without costing taxpayers an additional penny. It's within our power to do it. Let's do it now. We've talked about it long enough, Democrats and Republicans. Let's get it done this year. This is all about a simple premise. Health care should be a right, not a privilege in America. So, how do we pay for my jobs and family plan? I made it clear we can do it without increasing the deficits. Let's start with what I will not do. I will not impose any tax increase on people making less than $400,000. But it's time
That was a
for corporate
goalpost
America.
movement. He
The
first
wealthiest
said over,
1%
I think he
Americans
believed,
begin to
I
pay
believe he
their
said
fair
first
share.
over $100,000.
Just their fair
But now it's over
share.
$400,000. He's trying to get some leeway over there. But maybe he had to
Sometimes I have
concess
arguments with my
a little bit, make
friends
some
in the Democratic
concessions.
Party. I think you should be able to become a billionaire and a millionaire, but pay your fair share. A recent study shows that 55 of the nation's biggest corporations paid zero federal tax last year. Those 55 corporations made in excess of $40 billion in profit. A lot of companies also evade taxes through tax havens in Switzerland and Bermuda and the Cayman Islands. And they benefit from tax loopholes and deductions for offshoring jobs and shifting profits overseas. It's not right. We're going to reform corporate taxes so they pay their fair share and help pay for the public investments their businesses will benefit from as well.
It sounds to me that Biden is betting on businesses to become more friendly
We're going
in
to
this way.
reward work, not just wealth.
Hey, someone's phone's ringing.
We take the top tax bracket
I don't know if you heard that.
for the wealthiest 1%. of
Whose phone
Americans,
ringing? I want to know.
those making over $400,000.
I bet he's
or more,
embarrassed.
back up to where it was when George W. Bush was president.
W.
It started 39.6%. That's where it was when George W. was president. We're going to get rid of the loopholes, allow Americans to make more than $1 million a year and pay a lower tax rate on their capital gains than Americans who receive a paycheck. We're only going to affect 0.3% of all Americans by that action, 0.3%. And the IRS is going to crack down on millionaires and billionaires who cheat on their taxes. It's estimated to be billions of dollars by think tanks that are left, right, and center. I'm not looking to punish anybody, but I will not add a tax burden, additional tax burden to the middle class in this country. They're already paying enough. I believe what I propose is fair, fiscally responsible.
Close up on Senator Bernie Sanders.
To pay for the plans I propose
He did not win the Democratic nomination in 2020
and enhance
or
the financial standing
2016,
of the country.
so he is now senator
When you hear
again.
someone say they don't want to raise taxes on the wealthiest 1% or corporate America, ask them whose taxes you want to raise. Instead, whose are going to cut? Look, the big tax cut of 2017. Remember, it was supposed to pay for itself. That was how it was sold. And generate vast economic growth. Instead, it added $2 trillion to the deficit. It was a huge windfall for corporate America and those at the very top. Instead of using the tax saving to raise wages and invest in research and development, it poured billions of dollars into the pockets of CEOs. In fact, the pay gap between CEOs and their workers is now among the largest in history. According to one study, CEOs make 320 times what the average worker in their corporation makes. It used to be below 100. The pandemic has only made things worse. 20 million Americans lost their job in the pandemic.
Oh, there it is.
Working
Somebody on their
class
phone.
Americans. At the same time,
Looks like someone rolled their eyes.
roughly 650 billionaires in America saw their net worth increase by more than $1 trillion in the same exact period. Let me say it again. 650 people increased their wealth by more than $1 trillion during this pandemic. And they're now worth more than $4 trillion. My fellow Americans,
I believe he's talking about either Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos of Amazon, I believe. One of them, I think either both of them or one of them are trillionaires now. But as you can see, the recovery line is K-shaped. There is an inequality and a rise for the wealthy.
There's a broad consensus of economists left, right, and center, and they agree what I'm proposing will help create millions of jobs and generate historic economic growth. These are among the highest values investments we can make as a nation. I've often said our greatest strength is the power of our example, not just the example of our power. In my conversations with world leaders, and I've spoken to over 38, 40 of them now, I've made it known that America's back. And you know what they say? The comment I hear most of all from them is they say, we see America's back, but for how long? But for how long? My fellow Americans,
They cough.
we have to show not just that we're back, but that we're back to stay. And that we aren't going to go it alone. We're going to do it by leading with our allies. No one nation can deal with all the crises of our time, from terrorism to nuclear proliferation, mass migration, cybersecurity, climate change, as well as what we're experiencing now, the pandemics. There's no wall high enough to keep any virus out. And our own vaccine supply, as it grows,
We're going to build a big, beautiful wall to keep out the
and we're meeting them,
coronavirus.
will become an arsenal for vaccines for other countries, just as America was an arsenal for democracy for the world, and in consequence influence the world. But every American will have access before that occurs. Every American will have access to be fully covered by COVID-19 from the vaccines we have. Look,
That reminds me,
climate crisis.
if you haven't taken your vaccine, take your vaccine, take your second shot. There is a lot of
The United
hesitancy
States accounts, as all of you know, less than
when it comes to
15%
that
of our
as well.
emissions. The
When it
rest
comes
of
to the
world accounts for
vaccines.
85%.
Take your booster.
That's why I kept my commitment to rejoin the Paris Accord, because if we do everything perfectly,
I believe Biden said
it's not going to only matter.
day one that he would join the
kept my
Paris
commitment
Climate
to
Agreement. I
doing
believe he
climate summit
did. That was
right
one of
here
his
in America.
executive orders,
With all the major
reversing
economies of the
former
world,
President Trump's decision
China,
to
Russia,
leave
India,
it.
European Union. And I said I'd do it in my first 100 days. I want to be very blunt about it. My attempt was to make sure that the world could see there was a consensus, that we are at an inflection point in history. The consensus is if we act to save the planet, we can create millions of jobs and economic growth and opportunity to raise
I believe
the
right there
standard
is
of
Jim
living of everyone
Clyburn.
around the world.
In the middle with the red tie.
If you watched any of it and you were all busy, I'm sure you didn't have much time. That's what virtually every nation said, even the ones that aren't doing their fair share. The investments I propose tonight also advance the foreign policy, in my view, that benefits the middle class. That means making sure every nation plays by the same rules in the global economy, including China. In my discussion with President Xi, I told him, we welcome the competition. We're not looking for conflict. But I made absolutely clear that we will defend America's interest across the board. America will stand up to unfair trade practices that undercut American workers and American industries, like subsidies from state to state-owned operations and enterprises, and the theft of American technology and intellectual property. I also told President Xi that we'll maintain a strong military presence in the Indo-Pacific, just as we do with NATO and Europe, not to start a conflict, but to prevent one. I told them what I've said to many world leaders, that America will not back away from our commitments, our commitment to human rights and fundamental freedoms, and to our alliances. And I pointed out to him, no responsible American president could remain silent when basic human rights are being so blatantly violated. An American president has to represent the essence of what our country stands for. America is an idea, the most unique idea in history.
This is a throwback to his inauguration speech.
We are created, all of us, equal. It's who we are. And we cannot walk away from that principle and, in fact, say we're dealing with the American idea. With regard to Russia, I know it concerns some of you, but I made very clear to Putin that we're not going to seek escalation, but their actions will have consequences. They turn out to be true, and they turned out to be true. So I responded directly and proportionately to Russia's interference in our elections and the cyber attacks on our government and our business. They did both of these things, and I told them we would respond, and we have. But we can also cooperate when it's our mutual interest. We did it when we extended the New START Treaty on nuclear arms, and we're working to do it on climate change. But he understands we will respond. On Iran and North Korea, nuclear programs that present serious threats to American security and the security of the world. We're going to be working closely with our allies to address.
I believe that's Jim Jordan right there. Lauren Boebert.
Through diplomacy as well as stern.
Both of them look
terms.
bored.
And American leadership means ending the forever war in Afghanistan.
Here it is. This just happened. He's pulling out troops by September 11th in Afghanistan. I believe the phasing is starting now.
Without hyperbole, the greatest fighting force in the history of the world. I'm the first president in 40 years who knows what it means to have a son serving in a war zone. Today, we have service members serving in the same war zone as their parents did. We have service members in Afghanistan who are not yet born on 9/11. The war in Afghanistan, as we remember the debates here, were never meant to be multi-generational undertakings of nation building.
Well, here they are.
We went to Afghanistan to get the terrorists who attacked us on 9/11. And we said we would follow Osama bin Laden to the gates of hell to do it. If you've been in the upper Konar Valley, you've kind of seen the gates of hell. And we delivered justice to bin Laden. We degraded the terrorist threat of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. And after 20 years of valor, and sacrifice, it's time to bring those troops home. Look, even as we do, we'll maintain over-the-horizon capacity to suppress future threats to the homeland. And make no mistake, in 20 years, terrorism has metastasized. The threat has evolved way
Metastasized. That's an interesting word to
Those
say.
in the intelligence committees, the foreign relations committee, defense committees, you know well, we have to remain vigilant against the threats to the United States wherever they come from. Al-Qaeda and ISIS are in Yemen, Syria, Somalia, other places in Africa, in the Middle East, and beyond. And we won't ignore what our intelligence agencies have determined to be the most lethal terrorist threat to the homeland today. White supremacy is terrorism. We're not going to ignore that either. My fellow Americans, look, we have to come together to heal the soul of this nation. It was nearly a year ago before her father's funeral when I spoke with Gianna Floyd, George Floyd's young daughter. She's a little tyke, so I was kneeling down to talk to her so I could look her in the eye. She looked at me, she said, "My daddy changed the world." Well, after the conviction of George Floyd's murderer, we can see how right she was if we have the courage to act as a Congress. We've all seen the knee of injustice on the neck of Black Americans. Now's our opportunity to make some real progress. The vast majority of men and women wearing a uniform and a badge serve our communities, and they serve them honorably. I know them. I know they want.
Oh, there's Lindsey Graham. And I believe that's Rick Scott of Florida.
I know they want to help meet this moment as well.
Believes that who that
My
was.
fellow Americans, we have to come together to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the people they serve, to root out systemic racism in our criminal justice system, and to enact police reform in George Floyd's name that passed the House already. I know Republicans have their own ideas and are engaged in a very productive discussions with Democrats in the Senate.
A very productive discussion about banning books from Dr. Seuss.
But let's get it done next month, by the first anniversary of
That's
George
what they're
Floyd's
doing.
death. The country supports this reform, and Congress should act. We have a giant opportunity to bend the arc of the moral universe toward justice, real justice. And with the plans outlined tonight, we have a real chance to root out systemic racism that plagues America and American lives in other ways. A chance to deliver real equity, good jobs, good schools, affordable housing, clean air, clean water, being able to generate wealth and pass it down through generations because you have an access to purchase a house. Real opportunities in the lives of more Americans, Black, white, Latino, Asian Americans, Native Americans. Look, I also want to thank the United States Senate for voting 94-1 to pass COVID-19.
Guess who didn't vote for the Asian American Hate Act? It was Josh Hawley from Missouri. He voted not to pass that act, and bring it to Joe Biden's
You
desk.
can see on television the viciousness of the hate crimes we've seen over
Thanks,
the past
Josh
year.
Hawley, for being the one voter to not vote for
I urge the
that.
House to do the same
You look
and
real
send the
bad. It's like
legislation to my desk, which I will gladly, anxiously sign. I also
like,
hope Congress will get to my desk the Equality Act to protect
the present vote
LGBTQ
from
Americans.
Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard during Trump's
To all
impeachment
transgender Americans
hearings
watching
voted
at home,
present.
especially young people. You're so brave. I want you to know your
That looks
president
bad,
has
too.
your back. Another thing, let's authorize the Violence Against Women Act, which has been law for 27 years. "27 years ago, I wrote it. It'll close the act that has to be authorized now, will close the boyfriend loophole to keep guns out of the hands of abusers. The court order said this is an abuser. You can't own a gun. It's to close that loophole.
Joe Biden's gonna take my guns away.
You know, it's estimated that 50 women are shot and killed by an intimate partner every month in America. 50 a month. Let's pass it and save some lives. And I need not tell anyone this, but gun violence has become an epidemic in America. The flag at the White House was still flying at half-mast for the 8 victims of the mass shooting in Georgia, when 10 more lives were taken in the mass shooting in Colorado. And in the week in between those two events,
Oh, someone's alarm went off. Wonder who it is.
250 other Americans were shot dead in the streets of America. 250 shot dead. I know how hard it is to make progress on this issue. In the 90s, we passed universal background checks, a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines that hold 100 rounds that can be fired off in seconds. We beat the NRA. Mass shootings and gun violence decline. Check out
The NRA barely exists as an entity
But in the early
today.
2000s,
They filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
We've seen daily bloodshed since. I'm not saying if the law continued, we wouldn't see bloodshed. More than 2 weeks ago in the Rose Garden, surrounded by some of the bravest people I know, the survivors and families who lost loved ones to gun violence, I laid out several of the Department of Justice actions that are being taken to impact on this epidemic. One of them is banning so-called ghost guns.
Oh, it's a ghost. I'm a gun, but I'm also a ghost. I know what a ghost gun actually is. But it's just a funny name. A ghost gun.
So they show up at crime scenes and they can't be traced. The buyers of these ghost gun kits aren't required to pass any background check. Anyone, from a criminal or terrorist, could buy this kit and within 30 minutes have a weapon that's lethal, but no more. And I'll do everything in my power to protect the American people from this epidemic of gun violence, but it's time for Congress to act as well. Look,
Joe's coming for your guns, for your ghost guns.
I don't want to be become confrontational, but we need more Senate Republicans to join the overwhelming majority of Democrats.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Close the
Oh,
loopholes required in background check purchases of guns.
nah, they won't do
We need
it.
a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines.
You think they'll do it? Come on, Joe.
Don't tell me it can't be done. We did it before and it worked.
They won't do it.
Talk to most responsible gun owners and hunters. They'll tell you there's no possible justification for having 100 rounds in a weapon. What do you think, deer wearing Kevlar vests? What's
Deer wearing
tell you.
what?
that there are too many people today able to buy a gun, but shouldn't be able to buy a gun.
Deer wearing
These kinds
Kevlar
of legal
vests.
reforms
Oh
have
my
overwhelming support from
gosh.
American people, including many gun owners. The country supports reform this, and Congress should act. This shouldn't be a red or blue issue. And no amendment to the Constitution. is
Can't
absolute.
believe it. That's funny.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
Fire,
fire,
fire.
There were certain guns, weapons that could not be owned by Americans. Certain people could not own those weapons ever. We're not changing the Constitution.
He said fire.
We're being reasonable. I think this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. I think it's an American issue. And here's what else we can do. Immigration has always been essential to America. Let's end our exhausting war over immigration. For more than 30 years, politicians have talked about immigration reform, and we've done nothing about it. It's time to fix it. On day one of my presidency, I kept my commitment and sent a comprehensive immigration bill to the United States Congress. If you believe we need to secure the border, pass it because it has a lot of money for high-tech border security. If you believe in a pathway to citizenship, pass it. There's over 11 million undocumented folks, the vast majority of here overstaying visas. Pass it. We can actually, if you actually want to solve a problem, I've sent a bill to take a close look at it. We also have to get at the root problem of why people are fleeing, particularly to our southern border from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. The violence, the corruption, the gangs, the political instability, hunger, hurricanes, earthquakes, natural disasters. When I was president, when I was vice president, the president asked me to focus on providing help needed to address the root causes of migration. And it helped keep people in their own countries instead of being forced to leave. The plan was working, but the last administration decided it was not worth it. I'm restoring the program and asked Vice President Harris to lead our diplomatic effort to take care of this. I have absolute confidence she'll get the job done. Now look, if you don't like my plan, let's at least pass what we all agree on. Congress needs to pass legislation this year.
Interesting proposal there.
Protection for dreamers. The young people have only known America as their home. And permanent protection for immigrants who are here on temporary protective status who came from countries beset by man-made and natural-made violence and disaster. As well as a pathway to citizenship for farm workers who put food on our tables. Look, immigrants have done so much for America during this pandemic and throughout our history. The country supports immigration.
All they did was steal our jobs.
Let's argue.
Right.
Let's debate it, but let's act. And if we truly want to restore the soul of America, we need to protect the sacred right.
Nah, the Republicans are just gonna be like, nah,
Most
we just
people-
want to win our votes. We want to get the House back. We want to get the Senate back. Now, I know there will be a GOP response to the Biden
More
speech.
people
I
voted
will
last presidential
report on that at
election
some
than any
point.
time in American history, in the middle of the worst pandemic ever.
Yes, exactly. It's a bunch of claps. What's up? What's happening?
Instead, it's being attacked. Congress should pass H.R. 1 and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and send it to my desk right away.
So right now,
The country supports it.
there's 200
And
people
Congress should act now.
in the House chamber instead of 1,600.
Look,
As is
conclusion,
usually
as we gather
customary.
here tonight, The image of a violent mob assaulting this Capitol, desecrating our democracy, remain vivid in all our minds. Lives were put at risk, many of your lives. Lives were lost. Extraordinary courage was summoned. The insurrection was an existential crisis, a test of whether our democracy could survive, and it did. But the struggle is far from over. The question of whether our democracy will long endure is both ancient and urgent. As old as our republic, still vital today. Can our democracy deliver on its promise that all of us, created equal in the image of God, had a chance to lead lives of dignity, respect, and possibility? Can our democracy deliver to the most pressing needs of our people? Can our democracy overcome the lies, anger, hate, and fears that have pulled us apart?
Who knows?
America's adversaries, the autocrats of the world, are betting we can't. And I promise you, they're betting we can't. They believe we're too full of anger and division and rage.
Oh, yeah.
They look at the images of the mob that assaulted the Capitol as proof that the sun is setting on American democracy.
Yep, that's true. Oh, I don't know about that.
We have to prove them wrong. We have to prove democracy still works, that our government still works, and we can deliver for our people. In our first 100 days together, we've acted to restore people's faith in democracy to deliver. We're vaccinating the nation. We're creating hundreds of thousands of
believe
jobs.
only maybe a quarter of Americans have received at least one vaccine at this point. So there's a long way to go for all of these things.
More fairness and justice. That's the essence of America. That's democracy in action. Our Constitution opens with the words, as trite as it sounds, we the people. Well, it's time to remember that we the people are the government. You and I.
This is Joe when he gets mad.
Distant capital. Not some powerful force that we have no control over.
This is frustrated Joe. He's getting mad.
We the people. In another era, when our democracy was tested, Franklin Roosevelt reminded us, in America, we do our part. We all do our part.
Oh, man, I thought I was going to say we live in a society, because, you know, FDR said we live in a great society or whatever like that.
If we do that,
oh, man, I was hoping that Biden would say that.
The challenge of the age by proving that democracy is durable and strong. Autocrats will not win the future. We will. America will. And the future belongs to America. As I stand here tonight before you in
They hit the mic. Oh, whoops. You know, I'll hit my mic too. Whoa, whoops.
I have never been more confident or optimistic about America. Not because I'm president, because of what's happening with the American people. We've stared into the abyss of insurrection and autocracy, pandemic and pain, and we, the people, did not flinch. At the very moment our adversaries were certain we'd pull apart and fail, we came together, we united. With light and hope, we summoned a new strength, new resolve to position us to win the competition of the 21st century. On our way to a union more perfect, more prosperous, and more just, as one people, one nation, and one America. Folks,
he didn't say one nation under God. Oh my God.
Over the years, it's never, ever, ever been a good bet to bet against America, and it still isn't. We're the United States of America. There is not a single thing, nothing beyond our capacity. We can do whatever we set our minds to if we do it together. So let's begin to get together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you for your patience.
So what you just heard was President Biden speak to Congress for the first time, his administration. And right now you can see him putting on his mask, getting ready to leave, with Vice President Kamala Harris and Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi presiding over the wings. And now Joe Biden is going to head on out with his entourage. And soon there will be a GOP response. Right now he's talking to Debbie Stabenow and Amy Klobuchar. But he's like, all right, you did good. You did good, Joe. That was a good speech. I want to see what he does with Mitch McConnell. I believe that's him, right? I can't tell. No, it's not. Mitch McConnell would have more of a turtle face, and he would have glasses. So that's it for that. So that was a very interesting speech. That was extremely loud. I apologize. So, okay. So, I would say that was an interesting speech by Biden. That was his first 100-day speech, his address to Congress. And I just wanted to take a look at it live and just get my first impressions of that. So what would I rate it compared to President Trump's speeches? So compared to President Trump's first speech, I think Biden's gives an interesting case for bipartisanship. He wants to work with the Republicans in order to actually pass legislation. You heard that a couple times, saying, hey, I want to actually get things on my desk. I want to actually pass stuff, put stuff on my desk. So hopefully there will be a common ground type deal going on. And, hopefully we will get something done in this administration before the midterms. I think that's the goal of President Joe Biden, is to get something done before the midterms. And I think he's trying to put the ball in the Republicans' court. He's trying to say, hey, you don't be obstructionist, help me out and I'll help you. You scratch my back, I scratch yours, something like that. Or maybe he's doing it under the guise of bipartisanship. I'm sure that's what the GOP will say, but that will remain to be seen. But this was just a look at this speech and my first impressions of it. And there will be the GOP response, which I will also look at some point in the Politico Pressroom, probably next week. And yeah, that was really what I had to say about it. Yeah, there it was. Move myself over here. Clearly I walked over there, right? Yeah. Exactly. Clearly I walked over there. So, yeah, that was that. But I think that was a cool speech. I would rate it like at least a 5 out of 10, probably maybe like a 6 or a 7 compared to President Trump's speech, because I believe it had a clear message to be sent to both parties. And I don't know, I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good because of how concise it was. Very simple speech, in my opinion. But it's not perfect. It had some problems. It was definitely not the most strongest speech. It was and I had to think about it. I had to think about my choice of words. Being very careful here, that's why I'm taking so long. But I really thought that the speech was okay. It was not my favorite Joe Biden speech. He got mad at the end, which was interesting to hear. Really, it'll be interesting to hear what the Republicans say in terms of, their counter offers, because Joe Biden invited the GOP to discuss things with them and discuss counteroffers to his proposed $1 trillion legislation packages. So, what does this speech really do? What did this speech really accomplish? This speech, I think, was an appeal from Biden to the Republican Party to come together and make some sort of deal on legislation, and this remains to be seen, I think. But that was my first impressions of this speech. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you for coming to the Politico press room. And next time I'll be here, I will be playing some games. And with that, I will see you all in just a little bit. Before you go, be sure to join the Politico Discord, the Politico YouTube channel. If you're hearing it from YouTube, follow the Twitch, follow everywhere. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed that. This has been Politico. Thank you for joining the press room. I will see you all at some point. We'll see you all next time, but I hope you all enjoyed watching my first impressions of the Joe Biden speaking to Congress. I will see you all next time. So long and farewell.